I'm Hamish Gray, and welcome back to another episode of With Who on Zoom. Today we're joined by Patricia Borba, performer and film producer currently working on a short documentary entitled Never Stop Running. Patricia, it's lovely to have you on the show. How are you feeling today?
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm just feeling very excited about being able to share this experience with you guys.
Yeah, brilliant. So for the first question, kind of like a simple one, just a bit about yourself and a bit about your background.
Yeah, so I actually come from a performance background, as you said before, but I've always also been interested in the producing side of things, in the directing side of things. And with COVID and stages closed, I decided that this is the right moment to follow that route that I was also really excited about. And I had been doing a bit of that before, but not fully, owning it. And so I did a master's in producing at the Met Film School, and this will be as a part of my final project. But also, a project that I see going into festivals and into more mainstream platforms as well. And I think that also this project connects a bit of my background with sustainability as well, because for a while now I've been very engaged in, advocating for more sustainable lifestyles and getting educated in climate change and climate justice. And so this project is an opportunity to tell a climate justice story through a very powerful voice in this young girl, I think. So.
Oh, great. That's interesting. I'd like to talk more about the sustainability side of things a bit later on, but
yeah.
Based on what you said, would you say that you're more centered towards performance, and then COVID was almost a catalyst for making you realize, oh, I'm also quite this area of it as well?
Yeah, exactly. COVID was actually, as you said, COVID was a catalyst for my producing focus, because I had just come fresh from university. I did theatre and film and TV studies, and I was like, I want to be a performer, I want to be on stages, I want to be in front of cameras, but also actually that is first very not that my job is much easier now, but it's a very competitive field, and it's very hard work. And then COVID came and just made everything even harder, because nothing was happening, all stages were closed, and so I decided that yes, let's do something else. And I thought that I really liked to come up with ideas and to find stories, to find interesting stories to tell. However, my business side of things, I was a bit lacking. I was always very creatively stimulated in terms of finding stories and finding projects and having ideas, but then how do you get to actually make them, and how do you get to actually, because there's a whole process behind going on a stage or going on getting your cameras and going to shoot. You have the whole business side of things, you have the whole management side of things, the whole logistics, and I was kind of lacking on that. So I was like, okay, let's learn a bit more about this, so then I can actually hone the skills that I think I have in producing. And it's been a very intense but a very, very enjoyable ride as well so far.
Yeah, great. And how do you make that leap from, well, leap makes it sound wider than it is, but go from more creative side of things to that business ended area?
I think that it's not so much as a leap between going from the creative to the business or logistics side of things, is more of a complement. I think that the creative and the management complement each other, because there's no one without the other. You cannot simply, and my role is being a creative producer. So, I have the management side of things, so making things work and making things happen, but also the creative side of things. So coming up with the ideas and finding the stories. And in the case of this is a documentary, so there's not that much of a script, but if there was a script, giving notes on the script, giving feedback on the script, making it a better story. So I don't think it's necessarily one or the other. I think it's more both sides complement each other, and allow us to make the actual projects come through, you know.
That's a really interesting way of putting it, because I know a lot of young people who are more used to the creative side, but because they've not gone into it, they might think the business end wouldn't be as rewarding, but that's not what you found. You found it's
Yeah.
another way of
And I've always been very very proactive in terms of making my own projects happen and, you know, coming up with ideas. But I was really at the point where I needed to have a bit more of that experience and that knowledge. And that is a really hard question. I mean, I've enjoyed working in many of the more commercial shoots that I've been involved with, because I used to be a bit more of the, you know, artsy type. Commercial is not for me. And then when I actually started working in commercial work, I realized that it's actually not like that. It's it can be so much fun, and you're actually allowed to be quite creative as well. And if you're working with brands and with people that share some sort of like values with you, then it's actually a great experience. What is my greatest achievement? I think that this project that I'm working on will be my greatest achievement. I mean, after it's done, it's already being so challenging, and so it's so demanding of me, but also I am so thrilled about it and so excited about everything that is happening. So even though it's not done still, it is kind of already my biggest achievement, if that makes sense.
Your magnum opus already on the road. That's very interesting to hear. That's yeah. So well, moving on to that documentary. Well, first of all, could you give the premise of it for the people listening at home?
Never Stop Running is a documentary short. It is about a young Mozambican girl whose name is Shelsya Panza, and she is a young athlete. She is 19 years old now, but the story is about her journey from competing in international competitions as a youth athlete in the youth leagues to going through Cyclone Idai in 2019. That basically made her lose everything. She lost, you know, things that we take as granted, at least I take as granted, you know, roof over her head and access to clean water and access to food and electricity and just, you know, mobile connections. And so her journey through having lost all of that and then rebuilding her life while never stopped running, you know, she never stopped running, and it's about her resilience and her strength through that journey, that post-cyclone life, and up until now, when she is going to be back on tracks. She's running at the national championships, and that competition could give her the opportunity to go back to represent her country internationally, as she was doing before the cyclone. And also, I think I know we are going to show both sides, her side and the side of the international communities during the post-cyclone period, to show a bit of all of this was happening, you know, like all of this food was being donated, all of this water was being donated, but still it wasn't enough because she herself, she didn't receive enough help or close to anything. So about the problem, the systemic problem that we're facing now, that is climate change and climate justice, that will always be on the background of this story. because cyclones and floods and droughts are only happening more persistently, more consistently, more often in Mozambique and in poorer countries in general, and poorer areas. But also these are the people less able to protect themselves. The country's less able to protect their people. And so, yes, it's a short documentary about all of this, and a very resilient young athlete.
Right. Yeah. Sounds like there's a lot of, like, I can definitely see what would draw you to this story.
Yeah.
There's so much there to talk about. But in terms of just you personally, what did draw you to Shelsya's story?
So what drew me to Shelsya's story was first that I was looking for telling a story of climate justice or climate change through the voice of the people that are in these poorer countries who are feeling climate change so near them on a daily basis. And I feel like we don't hear near as much as we should be hearing about that from those people, because we hear about climate change from scientists and from politicians and from young advocates and celebrities, and go vegan, and yes, it's good that we're hearing that, but it's all kind of in this cloud, and it's sort of this concept sometimes. But I feel like if we actually go down to the local stories, to the people that are actually feeling something that we may be feeling in some years, then it puts things into perspective. So I was looking for a story like that, a story that could give us a sense of positionality and a sense of perspective of, okay, we may not be feeling climate change on our skin right now, but maybe in 10 years we will. And they're already feeling it. So this is the stories that we could be telling ourselves in a few years. And then Shelsya was friends with my sister, because my sister is an athlete as well. So I remembered her and I decided to give her a call. We chatted for a little, and just to see if she had a story and what was her story, what was her experience. And I was just passionate about her story and about her passion for the sport. And the fact that she told me this whole story about how, her food was underwater and they were living underwater for a week and all of that with a smile on her face, just really made me think, okay, I have to tell you a story. I think this is a great opportunity to tell something a bit different from the natural narratives that we're used to hear about climate change and climate justice, and through the voice of such a young girl, because also, apart from being a problem of demographics, the poorer countries are the ones most suffering from it. It is also a problem of gender and age, because children and women in these poorer countries that are already the ones suffering the most from climate change are also the ones suffering the most from it in terms of economics, because they're not allowed the same type of protection that men are, that adult men are. So the fact that this story of climate justice is coming from a woman, and from a young woman, that she was 17 years old, I believe, when the cyclone hit her city, is really powerful. And so this was what dragged me into this story.
So what you're doing is getting the people who are most negatively affected by climate change and putting a platform for them to speak for themselves, rather than, like you were saying, scientists and celebrities and that, like trying to the people who are immediately experiencing it.
I also don't want to generalize, because I think that this is a very particular story and it's her story. I want it to be her story. But at the end of the day, is a story between many that give us that sense of perspective. And despite being her story, it's a really impactful one, and it's an example of what is happening.
Would you say this will be the wider appeal of the film? This is how you're going to be, But anyway, because that's what it is, like a look at climate change and a really powerful story.
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Oh, sorry, I didn't really phrase that as a question well enough. What would you say is the wider appeal of the film? How not like how you would marketing it towards people.
Yeah. Um, so I think that the biggest appeal of the film, I think there's two sides of it. I think it's the sports side of it, because it will make us really root for her, because it's about her sports journey at the end of the day as well. Through being this international athlete to losing everything that allowed her to run and practice, and even seeing her, the conditions that she had before the cyclone that were already not ideal. And then her journey, her sports journey through kept on running, how she never stopped fighting, and how now she will be back competing. And I think that that competition will be the cherry on top of the ice cream at the end of the film that will make us really root for her. And it's the high stakes that are involved in the story, you know, like at the end of it, you know, even that competition, even if she doesn't win, even if she's not in the podium, it's already such a big achievement. But just the race itself, it will make us really root for her, and it's about her sports journey. So that's one of the appeals of the story. And then the other one is what we mainly have been talking about climate justice, and it's a very unique story about human resilience that I think will not leave anyone indifferent. And it's a very human story, aside from being about all of these big issues. It's a very human story, and I think that we love hearing human stories with drama, with conflict, but and with emotion that also relate to these other bigger issues that we may be concerned about.
Definitely going to be quite. It's going to get an emotive response. I mean, even hearing about it, it's so extraordinary that this is a true story of
Yeah.
person. So yeah, I mean, it sounds great. So moving on to just a more practical question, how do you feel about the creative team you've got working together? Did you contact them, or was it more of a
So yeah, I about the creative team, I put together a small team from people I knew, and I am so thrilled about working with them. I mean, our editor, our post-production person, he's been incredible, and it's so useful that I've been working with him already, because he's also be a big part in putting that story together and finding that story in the edit room afterwards. Because with documentaries, you shoot a lot, you film a lot, and then you put the story together. But the fact that we've done a finding the story work is already really important, because then we go out and we sort of know what we have to be looking for, not in the sense of exploring it and getting fake images, you know, but in the sense of finding images that complement the story that we already think we can have with her story, because we've spoken to her already, you know, and we've heard from her. So there's a level of building the story beforehand that I've been doing mainly with him, and it's been amazing. His name is Emiliano Lopez. And then we already have our DOP that I am also really excited about working with. He comes from having worked for TVs and news reports as well, which gives him a sort of that underground experience that we need as well, and that readiness to just be the man with the camera kind of thing. Yeah, so at the moment we are the main HODs, and we're working with a very small crew. In Mozambique, we're hiring sound operators, and then afterwards we're also going to hire sound designer that we've already sort of secured. So it's a very small team, because it's also documentary, and also when we are in the field, we don't want to be disruptive of the environment, because the point is showing the reality as well. So those are the people we have on board. I'm very excited about working with them. Yeah, the process was very organic, actually. I started talking about this with some people that I knew, and they started showing some interest, and then bonds started to be created, and we ended up with this small, amazing crew.
Like a natural collaboration, just
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant, yes. And in terms of just picking up on one of the things you mentioned of the impact you have on the environment you're filming in, do you try and like work in some more sustainable practices when it comes to filming?
100%. We didn't want to be hypocrite, right? Making a film about climate change and then be super, then releasing a lot of carbon emissions. That wouldn't make sense for this film. So we will only flying 2 people, and that's going to be our main source of emissions, the flights, because we are flying from here to Mozambique, and that's unavoidable. But we're only flying 2 people. Then we're hiring locally sound operator and drivers as well. So we don't have to spend to emit any more carbon into our atmosphere with extra flights. And then we are also even in the flights, we are doing everything we can to keep our journey a bit more sustainable. We're trying to pack as lightly as possible, so it also reduces our emissions. And then when there, we're gonna do a vegan production. We're gonna reduce our emissions through that as well. And the vehicles we're using, we tried to look for electrical ones, but it's a bit hard because it's Mozambique. So we're going to reduce our traveling as much as we can and do it very efficiently, so we can avoid driving and emitting for no reason, or we're going to keep our traveling very, very efficient and our scheduling very efficient as well. Actually, we are going to do a big ride in the country, and one of the ways is going to be done by bus, because we also want to have the real experience kind of thing, because that's the journey that she does to go to the competition, and that's a 16-hour bus ride. To go to a competition, she does a 16-hour bus ride. So there and then back. I mean, not in one day, she stays in some friends' places, but can you imagine doing 16 hours in a bus just to go to a competition? It's insane. In here, you just fly. And yeah, so we're doing all of those measures. Then we're doing other things, like we're not printing, or if we're printing in ecological recycled paper. We're not using any single-use anything, nor plastics, nor paper, unless really necessary, because we're going to try and schedule our eating. So we're also a small crew, so there's no need for that. Yeah, but we're also using a lot of natural light. We're not using any generators or anything. So we're really, by keeping it minimal, we're already reducing a lot of our carbon emissions and making it more sustainable. And so that was a big step. That is already, like, by keeping our crew minimal, by keeping our equipment to what we actually need, by making our traveling to reducing our traveling to the essential. That's our main way of reducing our emissions, is by reducing what we need and keeping our shoot minimal. And then whatever we cannot reduce or reduce down to zero, we're going to offset our emissions by donating to local organizations that are working towards preventing climate change. So we're aiming for a neutral, a carbon neutral production, which we will hopefully achieve. And I've been trained by Arbit. I don't know if you know it. It's a consultancy company for TV and the TV and film industries that provides advice on sustainability for the productions, and we'll hopefully be able to use the carbon calculator to make sure we're doing everything we can to reduce our emissions, and whenever we cannot, we will offset them locally.
That's a very strong commitment to
Yeah.
sustainability. That's like almost every part of the filmmaking process you'll be looking to that. So that's great. A lead by example.
Yeah, and it's very important to us, because if that's the point of the film, plus we're sending a message of sustainability that is also really important, because it's imprinting in the minds of our viewers that message as well, not just what we do, but also what is on screen. But that was really important to us, because then I think we'd feel a bit hypocrite about the whole process. And if we're trying to do something good here and something positive here with the story we're telling, we have to think of how are we telling it, to make sure the whole process is coherent.
Of course. And this might be an annoying question, because it's very unlikely there'll be a set answer, but do you have any idea of sort of a time frame before this will be, the documentary can be published?
Yeah, so it will be ready by the end of so by the beginning of December, and hopefully we're looking at releasing it by either the end of the year or the beginning of next year. It will depend on the opportunities we get. We have been talking with some very interesting collaborations in terms of distribution and releasing the film that I cannot wait to share. But I think it's a bit too early to talk about that still. But yes, so hopefully it will be out by the beginning of next year.
Well, thank you very much. It's very interesting hearing about the documentary. I'm looking forward to when it comes out. And just as a final question, if are there any projects you have planned for the future, or do concurrently with this, that you can tell us about?
Yes, sure. I mean, I am currently involved in another short film that I'm doing with a director that is incredible. His name is Leon Linders. We're doing a production. It's called Our Dance, and it's about an elderly couple journey through love, loss, dance, and Alzheimer's disease. So, and it's based on stories that the director and the screenwriter heard from their parents. So they interviewed their parents because their grandparents suffered from Alzheimer's and unfortunately passed away from Alzheimer's. So they interviewed their parents on their experience seeing their own parents going through the disease. And so it's a very personal project to the director and to the screenwriter, because it's based in real experiences. And again, we're looking at everything we can to make the production more sustainable. We're also having vegan catering. We're having, everything reduced to the minimum we need to in terms of just supplies in general, like nothing is, very little is being printed. Everything we can, we're getting thrifted or secondhand or borrowed or rented instead of buying new. That is a really important part in like fiction projects, everything that you buy to make the aesthetics. But actually there's a lot of things that already exist out there. So you can actually find them with that. Firstly, you save money. And secondly, you save the planet. So, there's only positives in that. So I'm very excited about that project as well. That will hopefully also be released by the beginning of 2022. And then I am working on a very exciting feature as well, but I don't know how much I can talk about that. So we'll leave it at that.
A nice little sizzle for the end. Great.
Yeah. So, just keep paying attention to my socials, I guess, because that will probably go through that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been brilliant. It's for the outro, I'll say.
Thanks a lot.
No problem. So to those of you at home, thank you very much for listening. I've been Hamish Gray from Voice Magazine. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and check out Never Stop Running when it comes out, when you can. Thank you very much.